Network Entertainment.
This is brought to you by Meralco.
All right, welcome, welcome. So today, grabe yung magiging discussion natin because these are two of the pinakamainit na topics right now. No, it's actually very crazy. It's about information overload because hello, it's 2023, 'di ba? Nakakaloka, parang hindi ko na nga binasa yung script kasi nga hindi ko kayang. Ang dami-daming information. So right now we will be talking about information overload and fake news. And I'm glad you guys are here to make time for this. But before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm Gigi Tibi. I'm the founder and president of RadManila. It's a marketing communications agency. We handle brands like Uniqlo, which I think some of you guys are wearing right now. Thank you. Green Cross. I think we have like 4 Green Cross brands, GlaxoSmithKline, etc., etc. But what I take most pride of is the fact that right now at 50, I am living a life of purpose and service. So I'm with the PANA Foundation. I'm a board of trustee, and as you probably know, PANA Foundation is basically the heart of the marketing communications industry, and our focus are basically education and values formation, which a long time ago sounded so conservative and so parang napaka-ano, but na-realize ko, oh my God, kailangan pala talaga, no? Parang we're seeing the impact of, pag medyo hindi values-driven yung mga efforts ng mga brands, medyo mahirap. I'm also a forest builder. My father is from Iriga. So, during the pandemic, we've, together with Mother Earth, have created a forest of, I think, around 600 trees already.
Wow.
These are indigenous trees. I'm also a founder of a scholarship foundation for Aita children, mostly Aita girls in Iriga. We have almost 40 scholars, and I'm a volunteer life coach.
Yes.
But today, I am your moderator. So I'm Gigi. Isa-isahin natin.
All right, I'll go next. My name is Ace. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Blogapalooza. We're an influencer marketing company, and we have the largest community of content creators and influencers nationwide. We have more than 50,000, literally from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi. Meron tayong mga blogafam dyan. But for me, I started as a blogger, so I've always been a storyteller. And right now, I'm part of the board of the Creator and Influencer Council of the Philippines, or CICP. That's me.
Welcome.
Of course.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gigi and Ace. Yeah, I'm Jan Chavez Arceo. I'm like most of us here. I'm a multi-hatter. I'm essentially a social entrepreneur. One of the companies that I'm a part of is Tibi Media Company Corporation. It actually focuses on educational technology solutions so that we can promote education resiliency. We do training and education support, production also. And I have this consulting firm group. I call it Impact Solutions Research Institute. It actually focuses on bridging the civil society, private sector to the defense and security sector and the development sector. Well, I'm part of an education institution based in south of Manila, Laguna, the province. I was able to, well, with the help of the team, of course, leading it, we were able to grow its enrollment pre-pandemic at 4,000, and now we are at 9,000 students and growing. And we were growing even during the pandemic period. We're just so grateful and thankful for that. But like Gigi, what I'm, I guess, most proud of, or what drives me really, is I am also a lieutenant colonel in the Philippine Army Reserve Force. I am the battalion commander of a reserve unit based in Laguna. We have over 500 reservists under my, leadership. And I am part of the National Security Cluster. I'm a National Security Fellow of the Philippine Council for Foreign Relations. So the research institute that I founded is actually focusing on defense and security researches. I'm particularly focused on cybersecurity, cyber operations, cyber sociology, and now we're really looking very much into, which is very relevant for this afternoon, is cognitive domain operation. So there.
Grabe credentials itong si John. Parang, actually, inedit pa niya yan. Dapat bukas pa tayo matatapos. Pero mas mahaba pa yun. Thank you,
Grabe.
John. I love it. And our third,
Yes, hi. Happy to be here. My name is Aika Rojas. I'm currently the director for creative program partnerships in Tier 1 Entertainment. It's an entertainment agency in esports and gaming, or if you guys are more familiar with Blacklist International in Mobile Legends, that's our team. So we manage mainly teams and, of course, influencers in the space. And we've been doing this since 2017, and as one of the founding members, I've had a lot of experience training our influencers on how to best operate, whether that's purely in gaming or communicating to their fans, doing live streams. And this is across the board in our different territories, because we're not only in the Philippines, we're also in other countries such as Myanmar, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, and even Japan. So yeah. Nice to meet you guys.
yay, thank you, Aika. And last but not the least, the only gentleman.
Yeah, I'm the rose among the thorns. I'm Jocel de Guzman. I'm the founder and president of Truth 360, which is a reputation management and advocacy communications company. We specialize in advocacy marketing and crisis communications. I'm also currently the reputation management marketing consultant of Manila Bulletin. And in mid this year, I founded and I became the lead convener of ScamWatch Pilipinas, which is the national arm of the government to educate Filipinos against online scams. So we are in partnership with the ICT, Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, National Privacy Commission, and National Telecommunications Commission. So there, I have 25 years experience
Naalala ko pa yon.
of corporate
Pwede mo bang
communications.
sabihin yung companies or hindi na?
Yes, I took. I started my career as a corporate communications assistant in Bayantel, and I became the corporate communications manager for Prudential Life, which is a pre-need company. And then after that, I became the corporate communications head of Sun Cellular. And after that, I became the marketing services head of Alaska Milk Corporation. And after that, I became the global corporate communications head of LBC before becoming the PR and communication strategy head of Globe Telecom for 7 years. And then I started my own na.
Yeah,
So,
that's how I remember you from Globe.
yeah.
Yeah, we were in the board in PANA Foundation,
Yes.
diba? Si John naman, before I joined Sachi, I will not say kung kailan, I was hearing her name already, pero hindi na tayo nag-abot. So I'm glad that after, my God, maybe like 2 decades, finally I've met you. I'm so glad. There's a face to the name.
So I hope you're hearing good things only.
All
I
good
didn't mention
things.
that earlier, but yes, like I mentioned, I was in advertising for over 2 decades. And I mentioned pala, I was with PAC,
Yeah.
BBDO, and then Sachi.
Yeah.
So, there.
Yeah. At may mga bagets tayong makasama. And I love how varied. Sabi nga nila, iba-ibang generations daw ito, diba? Ang saya. So, very excited ako to hear your point of view. You guys are multi-hyphenated and all very energetic people, no? But if you can choose an aspect of the work that you are doing now, and can you do like create a headline na tipo ito yung biggest challenge, no? Ito yung biggest challenge na kinakaharap nyo in what you are doing right now in relation to our topics today, which is information overload and fake news. Meron bang ganon? And just expound, no? Let's make it lang free flowing and kwento nyo lang.
Maybe I could start na lang, no?
Yes, please.
One of the major challenges I would say in my industry or in the work that I do is different personalities, different ways of working, and sometimes even different beliefs. And I say this because our community is huge. Our community is massive, and they're from all over the Philippines. So, it's really different cultures, and the way that we work with them, and the way that I have seen this industry has evolved. Medyo matagal na rin ako dito, mga 2 decades na rin ako dito, sa totoo lang.
Hindi halata.
Oo.
Wala sa itsura.
Medyo matagal na rin ako dito.
Oo, usap tayo mamaya.
So, so having seen this industry evolve, I've also seen how the bloggers of the early 2000s are different from the content creators of this this age, no? Before, I remember we were blogging. I was very young. I was 11. I started blogging when I was 11. Oh my God. Yeah. So, we would really write about very factual things, because what's in it for us to, to write about not nice things or non-factual things, right? About what's in it for us. So it was more personal back then. And when the social media landscape evolved and really, nag-increase talaga yung demand for it, I saw how the freedom of the people, which was nice sa totoo lang, no? The freedom of the people also kind of brought out different monsters, I would say, huh? Yun nga, different ways of working, different beliefs. So I would say that's a challenge in my industry. And I see that as someone who has seen the industry evolve. Yeah, but you've seen how the industry evolved even more. way back. Sa inyo naman. Pero sa inyo naman.
Alam mo, you said a lot, but I'm also taking note of the things that you did not say. Para parang na-sense ko yun. Nabasa ko yun. Magaling ako magbasa ng ganyan eh. So, I think your industry is like a microcosm of society in general, di ba?
Philippine society for that matter.
Ganun naman yan. So, medyo gets natin what she's trying to say, right? Okay, so that's your challenge now. Managing the personalities, each with their particular agenda. Okay, who wants to go next?
I think just to kind of chime in on that, since medyo related din, kami kasi we've been managing around 1,500 influencers across different cultures then. And I think one of the things talaga is, aside from the things you mentioned, is we've also seen the rise of so many different platforms that each come with their own set of rules, different ways of content creation. For example, media and journalism is not only the big outlets now, we also have a lot of TikTok journalists. And with that comes a lot of discernment for people to consider na parang,
Can
who do you
hold that
listen
thought?
to?
So when you say TikTok journalist, I'm from UP. I took a film. So there's like a BA journalism next door.
No.
So what is TikTok journalism exactly?
It's just your average people that eventually gain a following because they decide to create content that is about reporting on whatever niches they may have. So some people report on celebrity news, some people report on even true crime and things like that. So that's a thing that's really becoming popular now. So yun, parang for us, it's like, as managing all these influencers, parang you said, diba, there's courses on journalism. Influencers did not have media training growing up.
So pag ganyan, do they really count as journalists? I mean,
well, yun, the terms are evolving.
Paano yun, nauso na rin yung citizen journalist?
Oo,
Yeah.
diba? Oo. So
The world is
technically,
evolving. Ganun na siya.
I'd like to build up on what
please.
Ace actually mentioned and you mentioned in terms of culture. No, in a lot of studies and in some of my researches also, it's very important now more than ever, given this environment now, no, in terms of content creation and consumption. It's very important now that we as a whole, collectively as a Filipino, would understand, and it's clear to us who we are as a Filipino and what are our most held and treasured values, what defines us as Filipinos, because this is actually what you've mentioned is exactly what is expected to happen, given that according to the experts, we haven't really truly defined who we are as a nation or as a people.
Naku, ang lalim ng usapan na ito. Okay, sige, okay.
No, I want to bring this up because we have our young people listening in. And when you ask them, and this as a teacher, no, I teach young college students also, as well as military personnel and officers. But when I ask them, I always ask them, so how do you see yourself as a Filipino, di ba? Sometimes
Anong
it's
sagot
very
nila?
they pause all the time, and then sabi ko, sige, anyoan sa'yo, yung ganyan, saranghes. Then they get wild when you say that. But see, you empathize more with these things, with these concepts, and with these terminologies rather than mahal kita or kamusta po kayo, etc. And you know, they usually pause and be mindful. Kasi nga, oo nga no, nakalimutan yata.
Okay.
So why I'm bringing this up is because perhaps there is a really need now to look into who we are as Filipinos so that there's a more shared value that our content creators and our content consumers, but more so the content creators can actually push forward there in the context of whatever it is, their creative expressions, no? So I'm just, wanted to
Pero
build
very
up on
interesting
that
the point that you raised, no? Parang, oo nga naman, kasi parang walang anchor. Who are we and
Wala
what are we
talaga.
trying to communicate? Because right now, what the digital world has allowed is people with internet connection, whoever you may be, can express your point of view. Diba, on one hand, people will say, oh, ito medyo na-democratize. Kasi diba, at least hindi na siya ruled by the elites, diba?
Yeah.
Those who have access. Now, everyone has a voice. Pero at the same time, because varied yung voices, medyo kagulo. That's why nag-information overload.
Yeah.
That's why, can you guys talk about, so, of course, no, all the things that are happening right now, may impact kasi lahat ng ito eh. And what do you guys are seeing as like let's talk about muna yung tipong ano yung mga the benefits, no? What are the benefits, and then ano yung downside? What is the price we're also paying?
Well, just to go back a while ago, I think the problem right now, the intent, if let's go to a higher level in terms of humanity, in terms of
Grabe usapan dito kanina, who we are as a people, ngayon humanity. I love it. Okay.
Simply because the issues right now of overload of information and fake news, it's no longer new in terms of intent.
Okay.
You have to understand, ever since they already exist, it so happened that those who are in power can actually amplify it because they have the access and the channel. Now, what happened today is that imagine everyone now who has their own biases, all moral standards and beliefs, they have their own channels. And we are now burdened with too much freedom. Remember, if you have too much freedom, you have anarchy. That's why you have regulation. That's why you have the code of ethics in journalism. And if you don't, and it's also giving respect to the other experts who studies, let's say for instance, when it comes to the cybersecurity, who are the experts? The computer scientists. When it comes to the vaccines, you cannot just give your opinion and prophesize and that this is the objective truth. You cannot impose. But that's the problem right now. You have globally, you have like millions, diba, of social media channels. Everyone now can be a channel. And collectively, those who have the same sentiment, same opinion, are now creating this that, it's, let's say in the United States, they focus too much on the freedom of expression. And it's part of their constitution. But there's a thin line between freedom of expression and objective truth. And defining that objective truth right now, which will be the role of the experts, is eventually losing its anchor because everyone are trying to project as an expert. And that's and then
right.
And people who don't, let's say, and people who are listening, first time encountering, let's say that, like the TikTok journalists, they will take that as an objective truth. And I'm going to give my dad as an example because he always watch YouTube. He's a wide reader, 3,000 books. 3,000 books. When I went home, he said, Bermuda Triangle was already resolved because I watch it in the YouTube. All I'm saying is, we have to go back and check in order to create this agreement on what the objective truth is. You can report based on your own experience, but your own experience is not objective truth. So example, is the earth round?
Naku, hanggang ngayon ha, maraming mga naniniwalang flat.
There you go. There you go.
Diba?
So there goes the problem of misinformation, and depending on your intent, if you're evil, then you're disinformation. And most of them are in my profession, the PR people. Because it's basically, it's at the end of the day, it's responsible content creation.
Oo. Ay, nako, ang laking niyan kasi what is the truth? What is the objective truth?
Yeah.
Ay, sige, yung mga content creators natin.
Ako, I have something to say about this. I mean, gets ko yung, I like how you were like, oh, let's start with something positive. Tapos dun agad. Pero I understand the concern about that. And totoo naman, like, there's a lot of things where may truth naman talaga. For example, things like crime and all those issues. But on another note, I think one of the best things to come out of this culture where info is so readily available is things like there's more discourses that need to happen that are happening. So just to kind of make it a little more relatable, like recently when Barbie movie came out, diba? So many more people are talking about the experience of being a woman in the world. And not just women talking about it, men too, and how they themselves are reacting to watching Barbie movie, how kids are reacting to it, how older generations are finally opening up and talking about it, the different point of views that they have. Whereas, like, let's say 5 years ago even, this was not a thing. So I think that's one of the positive things, because then that's how people actually glean better insight from each other, because then they have access to people's opinions who have a different experience from them. So, yan lang.
Well, basically, that's the problem, because right now, that depends on your algorithm. Because you have to understand.
Totoo din yan.
It's very unfortunate that in the last 5 to 7 years, that suddenly racism, I mean, we are all thinking that we're progressing, but because of misinformation and disinformation, a lot of nations elected a sexist president, a racist president. These are the leaders, and they were really elected by the people.
Yeah.
So in terms of the advancement, and in terms of being progressive, and a lot of accomplishments in terms of women's rights, in terms of LGBTQ rights, in terms of race rights, in a way, you're also giving voices to those who are anti. And ironically, majority, because of algorithm, unlike before where journalists will present both sides and you can read both sides in one story. This time, they won't. Subjective journalism will only give my point of view. And if I chose that as my content, I won't see the other side anymore. So that's really the problem when it comes to the technology that we
Right.
have
So,
now.
ang nangyayari, nagkaka-echo chamber na to, di ba?
Yeah.
Ganon. So, ang naririnig mo na lang kung ano yung gusto mong marinig, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Pero we know naman who the culprit in that is, di ba?
No, but I think it's very important in this discussion to mention it's the evolution of technology and how advanced or progressive technology has become.
And it will continue to advance,
Precisely.
Ha? So, tip of the iceberg pa lang tayo.
Correct. And so, I think it's very important for us to discuss how does that affect all of this. I mean, we are already recognizing that we are probably facing a concern, a major
Right,
concern,
right.
or a
Crisis.
problem,
Sige,
a problem because of
And can you give me, ano ba yung impact ng information overload at fake news doon sa nagko-consume at to society in general, no? Maybe kasi baka tayo lang to, baka naman okay lang sila, 'di ba? At least 'di ba, they have access to all of this information, they get to choose. And who are we to say na ito lang yung dapat mong panoorin, ito yung dapat mong panoorin? Are we, 'di ba? So can you guys talk about it? Ano yung impact nito doon sa tao, sa listener, sa well-being niya and to society in general?
Gigi, if I may, Gigi, already on that particular issue, there are a lot of studies already that's come out in terms of the impact of all of this, exposure to a lot of information that are unfiltered to our mental health,
Right,
diba? Especially this young generation who are watching us now. But I think more important to note, G, and this is something that we have been looking into, and a lot of experts have started writing about this. There is such a thing as cognitive aggression or cognitive domain aggression,
Tell us more.
cognitive warfare. That this is already targeted. If you remember us dinosaurs coming from the advertising industry, our guru that time, our Bible was Al Rice. Remember? So and they were even then they were saying that the battlefield is the human mind, right? It is really the we as advertisers and marketers, brand managers are always are battling over the consumer minds, di ba? Yung mind share, exactly. So now there are experts already, and we are researching on this one. They're saying that the warfare, the last battlefield, is already the human mind. In fact, and when that happens, and it is being used already. It is being weaponized, being used already to do what we call now digital colonization, right? So in other words, if colonization in medieval times or
Was
500
physical.
was physical, using coercive force, right?
Yeah.
Now it is already something that is creeping without us knowing it, and it's only being empowered because of our exposure and our consumption to all of this content that is being downloaded, through all of these different social media platforms that our kids have very high access to. So again,
Even infants, di ba?
yes.
Gadgets.
So imagine the kind of programming that is happening, and that's where misinformation, fake news, or disinformation comes in. So if there is deliberate intent for certain organizations, and we know some of them, right? Certain state actors to actually do it. Remember, state actors, these are actual government or countries that have the deliberate intent to manipulate or program the mindset of certain people, of certain nations, so that the decision making is affected. Baka ipamigay na natin yung bayan natin. That's essentially what I'm trying to say here. So there is such a thing as cognitive warfare. There is such a thing as cognitive domain aggression.
Grabe yung digital colonization, ha? Nakakalurky siya.
Yun.
Very visual ako. So parang
Yes.
nakita ko, parang nangyayari siya.
Exactly.
Habang
And-
kampanting-kampante tayo, yung mga bata.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah.
So like just one point, so that it's clearer, in terms of the visualization. We have 110 million now Filipinos, right? 48% or so, actually. 48% of that are the youth, the people watching us this afternoon. 48% of 110 million is how many? And they are the ones, in fact, most vulnerable, and they are the ones, creating the attack surface. We call it attack surface in cybersecurity and cyber operations, right? Because of their gadgets,
Right.
their personal gadgets. So imagine if we're talking about digital colonization, like 48% of the 110 Filipinos are highly vulnerable to that particular
Right.
operation or attack.
So what you guys are saying basically is that the listeners, the people who are watching us now, mostly young people, they need to be aware that using their gadget mindlessly is not healthy for them, to say the least, no? It is very unhealthy. But what are they supposed to do? Parang, di ba? Parang how can we, okay, can you give them tips like how do we consume media? How do we consume this? And what can we do?
So, di ba sinabi ni Jocel kanina, it's the algorithms that's driving and determining what we see, right? And it is technology. So, we need, it's a whole of society effort, really. So we agree that it's going to be a fun, light discussion.
No,
but
it's okay.
Yeah.
But I think they have to be aware, diba? Kasi how
Yeah,
can they take
that's the
responsibility?
awareness.
Yung pinaka-catch kasi rito, what you need to understand, given that there are so many technology,
Right.
and it's human nature to consume knowledge. In philosophy, when we call it epistemology. The problem right now, because there
Epistemology. Hello, Alexa. What's epistemology?
theory of knowledge.
Okay.
So when you consume, you want to consume a lot in a faster way. So that's why people are no longer reading long form. They're all bite size. 15 seconds of videos, diba, 30 seconds, and I think the tools as adults, whether it's the state, the barangay, or whoever leaders, I think, and even in the educational system, I think we need to push for critical thinking.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. I
Okay.
wanted to drive to
So
that point.
the critical thinking, that's yun yung
agree.
even for content creation.
That's right.
So I think you have to put this. Let's
Okay.
say if you want to be a blogger, if you want to be a YouTuber, you don't need parang you need the code of ethics. But at the end of the day, you have to also.
So how do we teach the young people to
Have critical thinking.
have critical thinking?
To develop
How?
critical thinking.
make them take philosophy. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, can you give us practical tips?
That's
Sige,
very-
Ako
please.
siguro, I have always been a believer that things start at home.
Yeah.
So I think for the parents, I think for the younger generation, kasi my generation, parents na rin eh.
You're a millennial.
Yes. So
Gen X.
my generation, parents na rin. So ako naniniwala ako, yung change na gusto natin makita, sa tingin ko yung millennials, they're already in there. Like, it's starting with the home. They're training their kids to, consume more responsibly. So,
So how does this look like? Like consuming media responsibly, how does it look like? Like if I'm a parent, I'm listening right now, can you give me like 1 to 3 things that I can actually apply?
alam mo, I look at the generation of my parents. Okay. My parents
baby
are in their
boomers?
60s. Oh, yan. 50s, late 50s, 60s ang parents
Gen
ko.
X to
Gen X.
baby boomers.
And sa totoo lang in our household, mas sila yung vulnerable sa fake
Actually,
news.
True yan. Tsaka
True.
di ba nagkakaroon sila ng mga girlfriends, boyfriends, yung mga, di ba, yung mga lolo-lola, nakakaloka.
Kasi nga, they
Okay.
grew up na kung ito yung nakikita kong source, ito yung totoo.
Paniniwalaan nila. That's
Correct.
right. Oo.
Oo.
Ano to?
Ito
meron-
yung nakikita
30
kong-
minutes? Pwede pa? 30 minutes? Oo, ang dami pa namin pag-uusapan. Nag-uumpisa pa lang kami.
Oo.
Nag-warm up pa lang eh.
True.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
diba? So, parang sila ngayon mas vulnerable eh. Kasi whatever,
Right.
they grew up in an era na pag nakikita nila yan sa kung saan mang media, that's the truth.
Oh, kasi yun yung totoong journalism.
Correct.
Nag-aral yan, nagpakadalubhasa yan, inedit yan, pinag-usapan
That's
yan,
right.
nag-brainstorm bago ilagay yung headline na yan, right?
Right. So I'm glad that Ace brought this up. So that's where technology comes in and where what we call deep fakes come into
right,
play.
right.
And that's the reason why you said, rightfully so, that the older generation now, aside from the younger set, are highly vulnerable to
most
this,
vulnerable sila.
given the proliferation of what we call misinformation, disinformation, or fake news.
Yeah.
Because the technology allows for deep fakes that makes a particular material for disinformation, all right, look like it's as if coming from a legitimate news network or news organization. And even the presentation looks like it's real, di ba? Real newscaster, etc. So there is where the thing is very, very, very interesting, and we need to be very conscious about it. Why it's very important for us to be very vigilant about all of this, because we will no longer, if we are not vigilant about it, or we don't develop critical thinking among our youth, our people in general, they're vulnerable to assume or immediately accept that something that they see, especially on the social media platform, is objective truth, as Jocel
And
is
so they
saying.
will be making life decisions
Yes.
based on highly flawed information. So medyo,
That's right.
it's actually very scary, no? So again, but I want this conversation to be more empowering. You guys, as you know, you guys have been around, you're experts in your respective fields. What can we do on a
We have
day-to-day
to-
practical level? So Jocel, earlier you mentioned develop critical thinking first, no? So I mean, how do we encourage young people to develop critical thinking?
Yeah, actually,
And
I
then
wanted to
you said it
chime
starts
in on
at
this.
home, no?
Yeah, definitely. Like it starts at home, but then for me, in a more to kind of expand on that, outside of the home, syempre, we have to really push the youth to seek out different opinions, seek out different experiences. It's really through that. It's exposing yourself to different communities,
Okay.
different ways of living, even different ideas out there that are not just in your own bubble. Kasi social media is that it's reinforcing
So
a dangerous
you said
feedback loop.
critical thinking, and now you're saying to also be open-minded.
Yeah, it
No?
starts with that. Because
Okay.
then
Okay.
when you are presented with different information, then you can start weighing
Yeah.
by discussing with your peers, discussing with
Okay.
people that maybe are more experts in different
Pero I'm sure
yun.
they do that Like because I,
I think-
have pamankins
yeah.
there like 16 and 21. They actually consult their peers more often.
Mas
than-
discerning siguro yung mga bata ngayon
Yeah.
because they're aware na may fake
Yeah.
news.
And also
Discerning yung
yung
mga bata.
yung pinaka-practical tip na may bibigay ko sa mga parents, it starts parang in the olden days. You ask.
Naku, ayaw nila ng mga ganito olden days.
No, it's basic. You have to start asking. You have to question everything that you read.
Right,
And then
right.
the problem is a lot of people are questioning it. Di naman, is this true? Is this true? But you have to reinforce it with fact checking. You have to also do your due diligence to verify it on your
Eh,
own.
kaso ang problema, wala na silang yung attention span nila, di ba?
That's right.
Do they have the energy to even do that?
Oh,
Right?
If that's the case kasi, you have to remember, if you don't start at home and if you don't create this practice, nothing will happen. If that's the case with what you're saying, I think it's the role of the state to intervene
Naku,
when it comes to the
Yan ang
regulation.
nakakatakot
Controversial
dyan.
yan.
Mahirap ito. Wag muna tayo pumunta sa state. Balikan
Yeah.
natin yung parents.
You can only do
Okay.
so much as the
No.
consumer.
And
At the end
because
of the day,
what you need to
yeah.
understand, let's say in the 90s, you have this
Hoy,
rock
saan
and roll.
pinupuntahan mong state
Oh,
na
we need
yan?
to get there because we need to
Ay,
wrap up
hindi pa
soon.
kami pwede mag-wrap up. Sandali, mahirap yan,
It's the
Jocel.
no, it's the regulation. You need
Oo.
regulation.
Yeah. Okay, but there are very many institutions. As Ace nga pointed out, it starts in the family. So the family, where it all starts, is so for the parents listening out there, is diba, for me, if I may know, I think ang practical way of developing critical thinking in a child is not to expect a child to follow, but to expect a child, to encourage the child to even question what the parents are saying. Are we aligned
Yeah,
with
you
that?
teach them a framework
Oo, kasi
of
if we teach
critical
if we tell
thinking.
children-
respectfully
Oo, of course.
inquire, be respectfully inquisitive,
Oo.
'di ba?
Yeah, and maybe baka ganon, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi if we tell them to just follow, then they will just listen to whatever is
Yeah.
perceived as authority, 'di ba? So
Yeah.
maybe that's one way of developing critical thinking. And then you said seeking out experts, meaning other communities, so that they go out of their house, not look at their gadgets, 'di ba? That there is life outside their phones, their Android or iPhone, right? And talk to real people, no, and learn from them. So being open-minded. Jocel, you said critical thinking. I studied in the State University in UP, and we are taught, pag binasa mo yung libro mo yan, magbasa ka pa ng ibang libro. Don't even believe the books that we're prescribing. No?
Yes,
Parang
yes.
That's right.
magbasa ka. And,
That's right.
and I think as a Gen Xer, I've sort of developed that. I really check,
Yeah.
diba? And it takes a lot of effort to do that, especially
It
now
does.
when we're all rushing. And you want to say something, Jen?
Yes, just build up on what Aika was saying, no, on the community aspect, because this young generation is more attuned to their community, diba, members. So what the community, aside from being open to other groups or other communities, but within your community, you need to learn to self-regulate. So the critical thinking aspect of the individual should be able to extend into the communities or the groups that you're a member of. So parang I encourage yung mga different communities, different groups there to self-evaluate and self-assess.
Yeah.
Kasi wait a minute, I mean, are we just, taking it all in
Yes.
as
Yeah.
gospel truth? Do we as a community, given our interests, our focus of attention, for example, our focus of the issues that we're focusing on, teka muna, ano ba yung mga sources of information natin?
Right.
So one practical tip actually, which we've learned from strategic communication from the defense side is, and now being propagated, no? Di ba, yung to verify is to check sino ba yung writer.
Right.
Sino yung writer, kailan
Ano
sinulat,
affiliations
ano
niya.
ang affiliations niya.
Right.
So, guys, that's very, very important, because then you will know what is the intent of that particular data.
Ano yung color? Ano yung
Yes.
context, background, right?
That's right. So that's some of the few tips that
That's
we can
and that's
say.
very easy to do, no?
Yeah.
And you can just Google, 'di ba? Tapos makikita mo naman eh. Tama. Okay, okay. Sige. So, because there are very many institutions that influence a person's thinking and behavior. It starts with family, as I said, community, whether it's church, school,
Yeah.
'di ba? You said state and you said about self-regulation, no? Because in our industry, we are like we are self-regulating, no? As much as possible, we don't want the government to interfere because we've been doing self-regulation in the marketing communications industry very successfully since the 1970s. As a matter of fact, and this is not to plug lang Ad Standards Council. No? Do you know that the Philippines is actually a benchmark when it comes to self-regulation of the marketing communications industry? And this is what happens when leaders in an industry rise above their personal agenda and pause and say, where are we headed? What kind of country are we building? So medyo very existentialist tong mga ganitong usapan. Sabi, information overload lang tsaka fake news.
Talagang it is already an existential threat to societies, to humanity. I mean, heavy, diba? Pero it is in fact an existential threat. And if we don't act quickly and we don't act fast and we don't get the young people to see it already for what it is. Diba, they're saying if you don't call a problem, you will never find a solution or you will never know that it is in fact a problem before it's too late. So yun. So talaga, we need to get our acts together.
As a last point, I wanted to say na, can we touch on one of the main drivers of why fake news and info overload keeps happening is because of the platforms themselves and the governments that regulate them. Because at the end of the day, the algorithm is driven by the desire for profit.
Right.
It's a desire for
economics,
greed.
no?
Yeah, so what keeps people glued to their platforms? It's a validation of whatever opinion they may have, whether that's right or wrong, whether it's harmful. So radicalization is actually something that supports profits of these platforms.
Right.
Kaya yun parang at the end of the day as a consumer, yes, we can do so much, but also at the end of the day, it's really these big institutions.
Kaya ang ganda ng sinabi ni Gigi, di ba? Leaders of different sectors rising above self. Di ba? Thinking of the greater majority or the benefit of the greater majority or the welfare of the greater majority over and beyond the self and the benefit, the bottom line. So, kasi before we know it, we're amassing so much wealth. I mean, for these companies, for these corporation organizations. But what are we doing to our society?
Agree ako dyan. Alam mo, sa totoo lang, ako we're in PANA Foundation, no? And my personal advocacy, I tell them na it is enough. It is not enough to be excellent.
Right.
Because as a people, ako naniniwala ako, excellent tayo pag pumunta ka ng Singapore, di ba, parang we become leaders there. Ang galing-galing natin, pero pag nandito tayo, di ba, we are already excellent. But what matters more now, it's 2024, magiging 2024 na really, di ba, is to come from the heart, to have malasakit, as you were saying, dyan, na sino ba tayo bilang tao, bilang nation, no? And noong unang panahon, may tinatawag na bayanihan as a concept, which is basically community working together for the good of a person or a family. Parang, di ba lang ma-hassle tayo, tutulong tayo kasi we look out for each other. No, walang naiiwan. And more, medyo hindi na tayo masyadong gano'n, no? Or at least hindi na masyadong na-highlight. Ang lalim-lalim na usapan nito. I think bukas pa tayo ma-upload. Tapos ano ba yan? Hindi kami titigil. We have, extend nyo kami. Pero maganda yun, first, we are now aware that these things that are happening right now, hindi to simple lang na this is a real...
Hindi siya simple
hindi
talaga.
siya simple. It is actually very dangerous dun sa well-being ng tao and our well-being as a nation, no?
Yeah.
And you said nga na it's important to develop critical thinking at home at mag-uumpisa to sa parents, and a practical way is to encourage the children to do respectful inquiry with regard to things that the parents are saying, 'di ba? Na hindi 'yun mali, no? Para yung bata matutong mag-isip, no?
Right.
And you said a practical way is i-check pag minababasa sino yung author, anong affiliations niya, kailan niya sinulat, a simple check, no? You guys were saying na because the algorithm is basically dictated by economics, by profit and money, and at sinasabi natin na, and therefore it is upon the leaders of any industry to really rise above their personal agenda, because otherwise pupulutin tayo sa kangkungan, di ba?
And also I have to again insist on the aspect of regulation, because the problem right now is driven by technology.
True.
And the global issue right now all of the government, a lot of government, they're having trouble regulating technology because it's so fast. When they create that law, it's already obsolete.
That's right.
So I'm glad right now. So right now you have the advancement of AI, and it's only recently that the government in the United States have called on upon the players to start creating the regulation.
Last week lang, di ba?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
But
2 weeks ago.
the EU has been there way ahead of the other.
So what I'm trying to point out, regulation in technology is an issue.
Yeah.
Now, why is regulation important? Because this is the one that basically creates what's legal and illegal.
Right.
Now, as a community, in all your community, you all know the flaws. We don't just really say, hintayin natin may gumawa ng law. We can push law
Already.
and become and help the lawmakers in crafting this as the subject matter expert in whatever technology or industry.
Hold them
This is
accountable.
Collaboration.
Because the government cannot do it.
Alone.
True.
Yeah.
And the private sector cannot do it alone. No? So
Yes.
kailangan nating mag-collaborate.
Those boundaries
Diba?
kasi needs to be set because you cannot curtail the freedom of others because everyone has a right.
Right.
Yep.
In terms of content creation.
Yeah.
So that's the role of the
Expression.
government. Kasi sila yung kontrabida dapat lagi. Pinipigilan yung freedom ko, hindi ba, pag bata ka? Hindi ba? Naku, bawal sa batas yan. During our time as Gen X, when you have rap music with violent lyrics,
Bawal.
you're now regulated. But of course, that's against the freedom of expression. So they created these parental policies and content. I think we need that in technology.
I agree.
And as a role, knowing, let's say, you're expert in your own industry, in gaming, in influencer management, knowing this problem, how do you now empower your community to influence a particular lawmaker or influence the political side? Because they will listen to you. They also need help. They keep on asking for subject matter experts. Yung mga pumupunta hindi naman experts.
Totoo yan.
So that's why the government needs you regardless of the government. Kasi the government, it's not just your executive. You have a lot of leaders. So I think as a community leaders, as an expert in our industry, you have to identify the problem. And that problem can be not really resolved, but it's a step in order to push for regulations. So the ICT is just new. This happened during the Duterte. And it took like 10 years before you can create a Department of Information and Communication
So para
Technology.
maging effective and efficient, yung gusto nating mangyari, collaboration with the government
Yes.
really is important. So this
It
is something,
is very important.
And the fact that we have someone like Jan who's doing, siya yung di ba, medyo nagbe-breach private sector and government. You've started doing that work, di ba, almost a decade ago.
Yes.
So towards the right direction. But of course, they cannot do it on their own. We also have to take a more active part, no? Especially the younger ones, kasi my God, we're in a mess. I don't like it, but it is what it is, diba?
It is what it is.
Kaya for us, we always remind our influencers, hindi lang puro clout chasing.
That's why.
Always
Thank you for
consider
that.
social responsibility.
Exactly.
Your audiences are really young and they really respect and believe the things that you say.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad to hear that from
May
you
kwento
guys.
lang ako, mabilis lang, anecdote. When I was in Globe back in 2014, at that time kasi blogs are becoming properties of brands. Hindi ba? And at that time, because it's subjective, there was this rift between real journalists and bloggers. So there was this proposal that created, there are a lot of bloggers group na maliliit. And there was this proposal to create that code of ethics for bloggers.
Yeah.
It did not work. There you go. It did not work. Yeah. I mean, someone proposed. Yeah. But in a way, it's, I mean, that's a good start. Kasi let's say,
that.
You know that. So
Yeah.
wait lang. So do you think it's worth
We're doing it now actually
There you go.
in the CICP.
Good,
But it's
good.
more for the creators and influencers in general.
Yeah. But see, the regulation or setting the community standards is very, very critical now. And we just need to disabuse the idea that, you guys, the content creators, are just there to make profit, diba? So we have a higher responsibility to ourselves, to our communities, and to the
Yeah.
total
Oo.
whole.
Of course, making profit is not a sin. It is not even
Agree.
important.
I agree, Gigi.
To live a sustainable life.
Yes.
Pero kailangan natin siyang balansehin, to balance it with our conscience,
Yeah.
and to really think what are the short-term and long-term impact of these things that we are doing.
Correct.
Diba?
Correct. I'm glad you said that. Hindi masamang maggawa
kailangan
ng pera, di ba? It's not an issue. There's nothing wrong with it. It's really we just need to be mindful about how we make money
At ano
with the
yung
things that
impact,
we do.
diba?
Yes.
And therefore, at kailangan ng regulation because para hindi magwalwalan.
Yes,
diba?
yun, exactly.
Yun. Oo daw, sabi ng universe, magwalwalan. Yeah.
Totoo.
So, at least medyo lumilinaw-linaw, di ba? But on a more, for the young listeners out there, what can they do? Let's wrap it up, no? Kasi overtime na tayo ng todo-todo. So, what can they do on a practical level? Maybe like two things. 1 to 2 things that they can do on a practical level, on a day-to-day level, to be able to take responsibility, to be able to protect themselves, and not siguro protection, it feels very ganito, parang I want it to be expansive so that they can be who they're supposed to be in this world using the technology that they have, but not be by this, no? Yung magamit yung technology as something that empowers them rather than something that
Agree.
destroys them.
Right.
What can they do?
Right.
Ay, ako na lang siguro doon. The general behavior of the younger generations right now is that information is super easily accessible for them.
Right.
So I think for the younger generations, my word for them would be question everything. It's important that you question everything. Don't take what you see as fact at first glance or at first encounter. It's important that we fact check and we find we make efforts to find the objective truth.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah. So, verification, di ba? It's important to verify. It's very important to be self-aware and know your environment, di ba? Verify with your community members, with your peers, with your family. Remember, your family will always protect you, in the general sense. Your family will always protect you. So, consult with your family members in terms of whether something that you saw online or on the social media is the truth, or is it actually correct, or is it factual. So yun yung mga basic things that probably on a practical level, on a day-to-day level, we can actually try to propose to the kids.
For me, it's a more social thing. I think we have to hold each other to a higher standard.
Agree.
Like, especially, alam ko, people are like, oh, let's mind our own business. But I feel like if you care about your fellow man and like your friend is spreading misinformation and they may not be aware, or maybe they're aware, I think it's important na you take the time to pull them aside, talk to them, and see if maybe, there's a way that they can stop or consider more factual sources, I guess. Yun.
Yep, ako naman for the PR students who wants to pursue this career, what you need to understand is that regardless of the organization that you'll be affiliated with, when you start working, they will always carry a particular interest that they will ask you to push as a communicator. Be it in advertising, di ba? Be it in advocacy, be it in reputation management, be it regardless of promotion. So in this aspect, you have to be able to tell. You have to be able to tell and be responsible in terms of the information that you are going to send out. For advertisers, you have the ASC, you have the Code of Ethics. You cannot make this claim, you cannot make that claim. It's self-regulated. And as PR practitioners, you also need to push for those regulations. You have to be able to suggest in whether in your industry, in your community, so that, because that will become their work as PR practitioners. So you have to always side with balancing the need of your clients, of your boss, or of the company that you work for, or if you're in the political world, the institution that you work for, with your own self-regulation. You have to understand that you have to go back to your values. You have to go back to your personal values, and it's a matter of what's right, regardless of if they're pushing you. You have to really make a stand.
If it's not convenient, it's not popular.
But when you're starting as a career, di ba? If you're new, you have no choice but to follow. But right now, the Gen Zs, particularly this
They
generation,
push back.
they're more really concerned with meaningful and purposeful.
Right.
So they question, if they don't like it, they leave. So that I think that's the good thing about it. So just do, parang at the end of the day, it's doing it the good. The good parang in Filipino ethical values, it's called bute. Dan
Ano
bait.
yung bute?
Dalawa kasi yan, bute.
Yeah.
So be mabuti.
Yeah. On I guess, how we see the industry, for example, moving forward with the technology and the evolution of technology, now more than ever, content creators and PR practitioners will have to be very conscious of what information and data that we put out there, because generative artificial intelligence just gather all of this data that is out there on the internet, on the web, diba? And they use this as factual truth. So we need to be very careful.
Okay, dahil sinanong overtime na daw tayo. Ako din, I just want to say one last thing. Like, can you give me 60 seconds? For me, for the young people, I will tell them to pause, to breathe, to alisin mo na yung gadget, and to just breathe, no? In this sobrang bilis na mundo, it's important to pause and to be aware, to be mindful of what we are thinking, to pay attention to what we are thinking, to what we are feeling, to what we are seeing, so that we can reconnect with ourselves. Otherwise, we will be like leaves na parang kung saan umano yung hangin, dun ka mapupunta, diba? So for me, it's important to pause and to know that there is so much more to their life than just their gadgets, no? And when they touch their gadgets, to be mindful of what they're consuming, verifying it, diba? Before even sharing it, diba? And to be aware of their values, what do they stand for, and as much as possible to do what is mabuti.
Yeah.
No? So we'll have to close this hanggang bukas pa tayo. We don't have time.
We're taking over this podcast network.
Thank you so very
This is a
much.
coup.
Thank you for your insights, and we wish you the very best in
Yeah.
all your endeavors. May you continue to spread good in the world, even if it's unpopular, even if it's most difficult, and may the force be with you. Thank
Yes.
you.
On to the next topic. So I want you to stay. So we will still discuss for 1 more hour.
Okay na?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.